year, we hope there will be solutions to some of the problems, at least the main problem that we face at the moment, and that is the COVID-19 situation. When we will receive the vaccination, the plan of the government, all these are questions that everyone is now asking, and they are the correct questions that need answers for. We are going to talk to Professor Tissa Vitarana about some of these issues, and sir, thank you for agreeing to be a part of our show on the very first day of the year.
No, it's a pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, sir. Let's get to the topic straight away. Now, you are renowned for your field of medicine as well. In addition to the political role that you have played over the years, people respect you for the other qualification that you have. But unfortunately, let me start there. Does the government understand how valuable they are to you, to them, rather than use some of the people that are not qualified?
That, of course, is a question we should address to those concerned, you see, because I have always served my country and the people of the world as far as I can. And at a time when we are facing a particularly difficult problem, I would have been happy to make my own contribution. But if I'm not given that opportunity, there is nothing I can do about it.
Maybe it's a new year this time around. Maybe in the new year they will have a new hope. They look for a new solution at least. Now, Professor Tissa Vitarana, this problem that we are facing right now is not just one person's problem. It's not the president's problem, or it's not the army commander's problem. It's a problem faced by all of us. And throughout the entire year, starting from about March, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of us have restricted our movement, stayed at home, not gone out. But all these have boiled down to the situation where we are now looking for a plan from the point of view of the government to ensure that the people receive a proper vaccination. Now, because of your qualifications, I can ask you this question. A lot of countries in the region, Maldives, Singapore, India, even East Asian countries like Thailand, have now a very solid plan of how they are going to progress vaccinating the people. But Sri Lanka they are still planning what should be done. We are now still discussing, in fact, what vaccine we should buy or purchase. What is your opinion on this? Are we on the right track? Because we don't have much time, because the people have been waiting for a long time. This is again not the fault of the people that we are in this situation, or not the fault of the government. But making a plan and ensuring that plan works is the duty of the government. So are we in the right area as of now?
You see, if I can begin like this, the whole idea of a vaccine is to ensure that the person who is vaccinated is immunized, so that the immunity will protect him or her from getting infected by the virus.
Yeah.
Now, we are facing a new situation in that the virus concerned, COVID-19, coronavirus, is an entirely new virus which has appeared. There is a lot of controversy about the origins of the virus, but the fact is that if you take the world as a whole, the people in the world have no immunity against this. Now you have what we call herd immunity, where the community at large possesses some degree of immunity against infection. And now, just to give you an example, influenza has been affecting the world for long periods, decades, and there have been variants of the virus that have been periodically causing epidemics and even pandemics. Now, in the course of this, the community as a whole has acquired a certain amount of basal immunity, so that the moment a person gets infected or the person gets the vaccine, there is a boosting of the immunity, and it will also need to cover the new features of the virus that is active at that particular time. Now here we are having a situation in which there is a completely open field. There is no immunity among people throughout the world, and there is this new virus whose behavior pattern is still speculative. The time interval has not been sufficient to study and understand its behavior pattern, how it will evolve. All these are questions. So now in this context, people are looking for a vaccine, which is fair enough. But if I start by saying that if you take the existing vaccines, which have been successfully used to protect humans against various viruses, they have been developed over a minimum of 7 years.
Right.
Minimum of 7 years before they have been used on humans.
Right.
Because there is a long protocol which has to be followed in developing and making sure that the vaccine is both safe as well as effective.
Right.
Now this has not been done with the present vaccines.
Right.
The problem itself is less than a year old, the virus. So there is a rush to develop a vaccine, taking a lot of shortcuts.
Right.
And in fact, when you take the two vaccines that have been developed in the United States, one of course United States and Germany, the reality is that it's an entirely new type of vaccine. It's called a mRNA vaccine, and it has never been used before.
Yes.
So it's an unknown factor. Then the other vaccines have made use of known technologies. For instance, the one from Oxford in the United Kingdom is one which uses another virus, adenovirus, as the vector to convey the components of the COVID-19 virus and evoke an immune response, you see. Then there are other vaccines we developed in China, for instance, where attenuated whole virus is used. The Russian one is also just like the Oxford one. So these are, shall we say, unknown quantities.
But Professor, now while us in the region, while we sit here and discuss this plan, and the government is also looking at, one person has been appointed by the government to ensure that these vaccines are brought into the country. We initially heard that it will be brought by the end of March. Now yesterday we heard that it will be brought before the end of February. At least 40 million is the number that they are talking about. In this capacity, why can't Sri Lanka decide what vaccine is required for the country at the moment? I'm only asking you this. I know you are not responsible for making that decision, but you are a virologist and you have experience in this department. Is this, while all the other countries are advancing very fast in terms of getting the vaccine to their people, why we are still behind is my question, and is there a justification for us being that far behind in the decision making process?
You see, I don't think we are that far behind. Already WHO has offered to give sufficient for 20% of our population. Presumably, that vaccine will be used to immunize those persons who are high risk cases, that is liable to die of the disease, either due to the age factor or due to the existence of chronic diseases, which make them more prone to this thing. But then you have to spend a lot of money purchasing the balance requirement. Now, even the amounts that are being already produced are totally inadequate for the demand, to meet the demand. And even developed countries are in a queue waiting to get the vaccine.
Right.
So, we didn't rush into these things. We had to make sure that we are going to get something which is effective, which is safe, right? And as yet there are many unknown questions.
Right.
There have been cases reported of people having had one attack of the disease, then recovered, and then had a second attack later. There are also instances where some people have been given the vaccine and acquired the infection subsequently. Then there is a general feeling that from the limited studies which have been done so far, that the duration of immunity even from the natural infection may not be very long.
Right.
You see? So these are factors which have to be considered case by case, virus by virus, and a decision has to be taken on the basis of scientific criteria,
right,
which are based on data that is reliable.
Understood. Professor, with that we have to go in for a quick commercial break. We will listen to the headlines or watch the headlines of the Primetime News Bulletin, and we'll be right back.
Newsfirst, Newsline.
Welcome back to the show. Before we went into the break, we were talking about why there was a delay in Sri Lanka deciding what vaccine that we should import into our country and provide to the people. And the answer was that we should actually look at things in a scientific basis and decide and not rush into things. But the other scientific question that everyone is talking about, sir, is the cremation and the burial issue. And again, yesterday also we saw reports coming out that there are over 85,000 documents that have been made with regard to the virus world over, and none of them have proven to say that the virus has got transmitted from the remains of a dead person. Now again, in Sri Lanka, this debate has been occurring for a while, and it has now become a national issue where not just national but international attention has also been drawn. My question is simple. From a scientific point of view, not from the political side, what is your answer to this question? A very simple, can you provide a simple yes or no to this question? Can bodies be cremated and or rather buried?
You see, the question is this. When a person dies of the COVID virus, coronavirus infection, the first point to remember is that viruses cannot multiply on their own.
They need a host.
They have to have a live cell which they parasitize, and within that the machinery of the cell is made use of to replicate the virus. So that is a whole process which has to be set in going in a live cell. Now, a virus by itself will just die in a matter of hours, at most maybe a day. And now, in this context, the host cell for this particular virus appears to be the cells of the mucous membrane of the respiratory tract, the human respiratory tract. There are speculations about the animal source and so on. None of these have been confirmed. There are suspicions, but more research needs to be done. So at the moment we can infer that it is only human to human transmission. Then this falls into a category of what are called respiratory viruses. That is to say, because it infects the respiratory system, the transmission is from respiratory tract of one person to the respiratory tract of another person. So now this process means that there has to be a live source of the virus, and it's passing on to another live person whose cells are susceptible to that particular virus. Now here we have the situation where a person dies. And we all know that as soon as a person dies, all the cells in the body die, and that includes the cells of the respiratory tract. So once those cells are dead, then no further multiplication of the virus can take place. So if at all, whatever virus there was before, at the time the person died,
will also die with him.
No, may remain, right? But in the passage of a few hours, most of it will die, if not all. Now, the various fears have been expressed that this virus might survive, it might be carried by water, but all this is speculation. We have, to my knowledge, up to now, not had a single proven case of transmission through water.
Right.
And the means of transmission is just like the common cold, a similar person-to-person transmission, and that is also through droplets which leave one person. Now, as I am talking to you, right? We are more than a meter apart. We are perhaps 2 meters apart. If I had the virus in me, I'll be sending them out in little droplets. The heavier droplets will fall down within maybe a foot from me, and then the others may be carried towards you in small and smaller amounts, right? And if you are beyond certainly 2 meters, it's very, very unlikely that you will get anything at all.
Right.
1 meter will get rid of most of the. So if at all, there is very little chance of.
So in summary, the story is that it dies very, very minute opportunity or chance for the virus to be transmitted from a dead person to a living person is your expert opinion. And the WHO, the World Health Organization, has also said something along those lines and said you can be buried or cremated based on the wishes of the family and the deceased individual. Now then, sir, why are we having this debate altogether? What is the problem?
No, I don't know, because you see, people have been, I don't want to name persons, but for instance, a geologist is supposed to have said that the water table in Sri Lanka is tends to be high.
Yeah.
Therefore, there is a greater chance of the contamination
Yes.
of the water in the soil through this water table. Now, there is also
Not proven.
hypothetical
Speculation.
speculation.
Yes.
No one has done any tests, no one has proven that. Right? And people have taken this up and said we mustn't take any chances, and a certain way of avoiding that any risk at all is by cremation. If people were ready to have their relative or whoever it is who died cremated, well and good.
Yes.
But if on the other hand, they say that they want them buried without any evidence of any sort, just on idle speculation to say that they cannot be buried, I think is not at all reasonable.
Correct. Professor, with that, let me quickly ask you this question as well. Now, we are in this situation where we went behind unscientific methods for the past 2 months. We saw what happened in the media. We saw these various tonics coming into play. A lot of people also speaking about the Ayurvedic, herbal, local medical practices, indigenous medical practices. But my question to you is, people like you are in the government. You are sitting there, and then why can't people like you guide the government to not go behind these unscientific methods? Because we have been wasting our time for the past 2 to 3 months deciding what to do, whereas now we are trying to expedite the process, and as you said, we are rushing into things now, where we could have, like the other countries, maybe done proper research for the past 2-3 months and arrived at a proper decision. Why isn't there no guidance? Or is it the problem that the government is not listening to you at all? What is happening?
They have not asked me at all, and whatever discussions have taken place, I have never been invited. So that's it. If I am invited, I would be very happy to make my contribution. But that's
at least let the country know, Professor, of what you think. What is in your, if you were to give me a brief understanding of your plan, if we are to stop this from going forward, what is your plan? Tell me your plan.
Mine would be basically to have, firstly, this has to be a national effort. There is a national question. There must be complete unity. There mustn't be any type of political discord. So, one of the proposals I made when it is dealt in Parliament, covering each sector, advisory committee of members drawn from Parliament, and I happen to be in the health sector one as well. And there was a meeting called where the minister presided, Minister of Health, and when this topic came up, I said that the first thing I would do is this should be treated as a national emergency, and in situations of war, we must have a top level, a high level committee drawn from party leaders, maybe from Parliament itself, who form a coordinating committee which will ensure that everyone in the country is looked after and make their own contribution towards the effort to overcome this challenge.
But isn't that there, Professor, already? The COVID task force headed by General Chavendra Silva, that is already in existence.
Yes, it's not a multi-party activity.
It's a national, the government has
Yeah,
got.
it's just a government activity.
Right, right.
So I think that is the first thing. Secondly, the problem, in my view, has gone beyond what it was earlier, where there was individuals coming from abroad with the virus being the source of a cluster of people who were exposed to infection, and some of whom who actually developed the infection.
Yeah.
So these clusters were well defined, were very well traced by those concerned, both in the armed services as well as the health service, and they were properly quarantined. And during this period, any cases that turned up were spotted and then dealt with accordingly as they should be, isolated in hospitals, contacts quarantine. Now, unfortunately, in my view, this has gone beyond that stage, and it is now spreading in the community.
Professor, unfortunately we have to cut to the prime time news bulletin, but we would love to have a longer chat with you throughout the coming week and discuss this. With that, we have to end tonight's program on Newsline. It was lovely to talk to Professor Tissa Vitarana, definitely an interesting character to speak to regarding this particular topic. We urge you to stay and watch the prime time English news bulletin as well. I've been Chaturanga Hapuarachchi. Good night.